He lived the same life as the songs he wrote and sang about. His life was proof that one could be so famous, yet modest in living, only to die while on tour. So, what led to his death? Joseph Hill was seen as more than just the voice behind culture, but a prophet of his time. Through roots reggae, he ran his life's race. He carried the spiritual and social burdens of his people, while continually spreading messages of consciousness, resistance, and Rastafarian truth to the world. His sudden death in the year of 2006 left fans shocked, but the real heartbreak came later when the world realized just how little he left behind in material wealth, despite his massive cultural impact. Join us as we take a thorough walk through his life. On the 19th of August 2006, reggae music and its community witnessed an unexpected incident, one that left them all in shock. This was the unexpected death of Joseph Hill. Joseph Hill was the legendary frontman of the roots reggae group Culture, and he collapsed in Berlin, Germany, shortly after performing a show on tour. He was later pronounced dead. The official cause of death was liver failure, and at the time of his passing, there were no records that Hill showed any signs of serious illness. He was known and remained a tireless performer because of his stage presence and dedication to his message. According to his son, Kenyatta Hill, who was working as the group's sound engineer, Joseph had been active and performing almost constantly in the final stretch of his life. Behind the scenes, it was reported by those close to him that the pressure of maintaining the message of roots reggae in a changing musical industry was taking a toll on Joseph Hill. He reportedly toured relentlessly, often performing multiple shows in close succession because he didn't want the message of roots reggae to be forgotten. Despite this demanding schedule, it was reported that he kept pushing forward because he was driven by a deep sense of purpose rooted in Rastafarianism and a commitment to cultural upliftment. His passing shocked his fans and colleagues alike because there was no public indication of illness, no farewell tour, and no signs that the end was near. In the aftermath of his death, his son Kenyatta stepped in to carry on his father's musical legacy by assuming the role of lead singer of Culture, which was a decision that was both symbolic and deeply emotional for the family and fans. Beyond the grief, questions arose. Although Joseph Hill had spent over 30 years shaping the roots reggae landscape with classics like 2/7's Clash and International Herb, there were no public records of substantial financial security left behind. Interviews and reports from music insiders suggested potential issues with royalties and compensation. This problem has historically affected many veteran reggae artists who emerged during the 70s and 80s, most of whom lacked the protection of strong legal representation. The reggae world mourned the loss of an icon and saw the reality that even icons can be vulnerable to the harsh systems around them. Despite his influence, Joseph Hill may not have received the full rewards that he merited through his work, and this was a heartbreaking truth that continues to raise conversations about artist rights in reggae music today. Therefore, what was Joseph Hill's net worth at the time of his death? The answer to that question lies in this video, so relax and continue this journey with us. Despite being one of the most respected voices in reggae, Joseph Hill's net worth at the time of his death was reportedly modest. Most sources said that his net worth at the time of his passing was between $250,000 and $500,000. This might seem like a reasonable amount for others, but it is relatively low for a musician who spent more than 3 decades recording, touring, and influencing global audiences. Joseph Hill's financial situation showed a common trend among reggae artists from his era. Many artists who rose to fame in the 1970s and 80s signed contracts that did not favor them. They were often lacking long-term royalty protections. Culture released music through labels such as Virgin Records and Shanachi Records, but it's unclear how much of the revenue Joseph personally retained after label splits, management fees, and distribution costs. Additionally, roots reggae is culturally influential, so it did not always enjoy the same commercial reach as pop, dancehall, or hip-hop. Though Culture's 2/7 Clash album was a massive success and is now reportedly considered one of the greatest reggae albums of all time, it didn't turn out to be a widespread financial success. Joseph Hill was also known for his humble lifestyle because he always noted that he wasn't driven by flashy displays of wealth, but by spiritual conviction and a commitment to Rastafarian values. Most of his income was reported to come from live performances, particularly in Europe and Africa, where Culture maintained a strong touring base. It's also possible that his heavy touring schedule was more about financial necessity than ambition. Years after his passing, his son Kenyatta Hill has made efforts to keep the Culture name alive through performances and tribute albums, which may have helped sustain the family's legacy. Still, Joseph Hill himself did not pass away as a wealthy man. But where did his deep cultural awareness and spiritual drive begin? Stick around to find out.
Hi, New York, how you do again? Greetings. Nice to see you up. Nice to see your smiling faces after a long trend of tears.
Joseph Hill was born on the 22nd of January 1949 in Linstead, a rural town in St. Catherine Parish, Jamaica. Reports have it that he was raised in a devout Christian home, where he was introduced to music through church activities, and he began singing at the age of 6. By the age of 8, he was already crafting his makeshift instruments and performing gospel songs in his community. These early experiences are said to have been the foundation for his lifelong connection to spiritually driven music. In the late 1960s, Hill moved to Kingston, Jamaica's capital and the heart of the island's reggae movement. It was in Kingston that he joined the Soul Defenders, which was a respected studio band that worked out of the legendary Studio One. He was a percussionist and contributed to the recordings of reggae legends like Dennis Brown, Freddie McKay, and Burning Spear, which helped him gain valuable experience in both live performances and studio production. During this formative period of his life, he was also reported to begin experimenting as a solo artist. He released early singles like Behold the Land and Take Me Girl. He also became more involved in the Rastafarian faith, and that reportedly influenced not only his personal life, but the entire message and mission of his music. Before he formed Culture, Joseph Hill was also a part of a smaller music collective such as C35 Incorporated, as well as Stepping Stone, where he performed side by side with rising talents like Glenn Washington. These early collaborations sharpened his songwriting and developed the conscious lyrical style he would later be known for. In 1976, Hill took a significant step by forming a trio with his cousin Albert Ralph Walker and fellow musician Kenneth Days Paley. They were reported to have performed initially under the name The African Disciples, but soon adopted the name Culture after signing a deal with renowned producer Joe Gibbs. Their first releases, including See Dem a Come and the groundbreaking 2/7 Clash, were reported to have captured the attention of not just the people in Jamaica, but internationally. The latter song, which was reported to have been based on a mythical prediction about July the 7th of 1977, caused a cultural stir and allegedly helped establish Culture as a powerful voice in roots reggae. This early period in Joseph Hill's life was said to have been marked by a deep commitment to faith, a hunger for musical growth, and a calling to speak truth through song that would reshape the next chapter of his remarkable career. These show that Joseph Hill was ready to take roots reggae beyond the shores of Jamaica and onto the world stage. Joseph Hill's rise to stardom began in earnest during the mid-1970s when he formed the vocal trio Culture with Albert Ralph Walker and Kenneth Days Paley. They initially started working with producer Joe Gibbs, and the group quickly became known for their spiritually charged lyrics, powerful harmonies, and socially conscious themes rooted in Rastafarian beliefs. Their debut album, 2/7 Clash, released in 1977, was reported to be a landmark in reggae music history. The album's title track, which was reported to have predicted an apocalyptic upheaval on July the 7th of 1977, was based on a prophecy linked to Marcus Garvey and Rasta teachings. The song reportedly caused widespread panic in Jamaica, with many businesses reportedly shutting down and people staying off the streets that day. The impact of the album went far beyond Jamaican borders because allegedly it became a favorite among punk and reggae listeners in the UK. The album received praise and solidified Culture's place in global reggae history. Culture released several more influential albums in the late 70s and early 80s, including Bald Head Bridge, Africa Stand Alone, Harder Than the Rest, and International Herb. These albums expanded their reach across Europe, North America, and Africa, where Hill's politically aware lyrics and spiritual themes resonated with many. Songs like Natty Never Get Weary, I'm Not Ashamed, and Zion Gate became anthems for Rastafarians and reggae enthusiasts alike. In the 1980s, Culture briefly disbanded, and Hill continued to tour and record as a solo act under the Culture name. He worked with various labels including Virgin Records, Shanachi Records, and Ross Records, maintaining a steady output of albums and live recordings. He was widely respected for his consistency and unwavering dedication to traditional roots reggae, even as dancehall began to dominate the Jamaican music scene. Culture's performances were well received in Europe and Africa, where Hill toured extensively. His concerts were marked by high energy, deep spirituality, and a passion for delivering messages of unity, Black consciousness, and resistance against oppression. Hill's voice, according to many, was raw, haunting, and full of conviction, and it became a signature of the roots reggae movement. Though he never reached the commercial heights of some of his contemporaries, Joseph Hill carved out a solid and respected legacy, and he remained active until his sudden death in 2006, while he was performing regularly and releasing music that stayed true to his core beliefs. Behind the scenes of his globally respected music career was a quiet and humble life, which was a lifestyle that reflected his principles more than any desire for extravagance. Sit back and relax as we talk about his lifestyle. Unlike many artists who enjoy and live lavish lifestyles at the peak of their careers, Joseph Hill remained remarkably modest in how he lived. Throughout his life, he upheld the values of Rastafarianism, which emphasized simplicity, natural living, and spiritual wealth over material possessions. His lifestyle was a true reflection of those beliefs. Hill was not known for owning luxury mansions or flashy vehicles. He lived quietly and placed greater importance on community, family, and music. Records indicate that he owned a property in Jamaica, but no public records or media features showcase grand estates, expensive assets, or luxury travel. His investments are also said to have been channeled more toward his art and his family's well-being, rather than into material acquisitions. Much of Joseph Hill's income came from his live tours, especially in continents such as Europe and Africa, where the demand for roots reggae remained strong. He was known to have traveled frequently, but kept his expenses low, which was his way of choosing to stay grounded in the teachings that helped to shape his music. He was often described by those close to him as humble, focused, and uninterested in the trappings of fame. When off stage, those close to him reported that Hill enjoyed reasoning with fellow Rastas. They engaged in ways of improving spiritual discourse and promoting African unity. His simplicity was not only for image, but also his way of life. His dreadlocks, natural attire, and quiet demeanor became as much a part of his identity as his music. Even with a respected international reputation, Joseph Hill never strayed from the roots that guided him. His lifestyle was not one of excess, but of intention because he lived the messages he sang. While Hill may not have been a man of flashy wealth, he was rich in another way, and that's through his family. Few people have noted that his family was in his closest relationships, and that his legacy would take its most personal form. Joseph Hill was known to be a deeply family-oriented man while he was alive. Although sources indicate that he kept much of his personal life private, it's well known that he was married and had children. His wife, Pauline Hill, was not just a partner in his personal life. She also played a supporting role in his career. In later years, she worked closely with the band Culture, often acting as the group's road manager during tours. His most publicly known child is Kenyatta Hill, who followed in his father's musical footsteps and became a central figure in preserving Joseph's legacy after his passing. Kenyatta initially worked behind the scenes as Culture's sound engineer and road manager during his father's later tours. Other children, including Andrea Hill and Afreen Hill Walker, have also been mentioned in public statements and tributes. However, just like his marriage, Joseph Hill raised his children away from media attention, keeping his family matters private and grounded. Due to how private he was and chose to live, the total number of children he had was not known today. There's no further record of their whereabouts or progress. Joseph and Pauline's relationship reflected mutual respect, purpose, and a commitment to Joseph's mission as both an artist and a messenger. When Joseph Hill passed away, Kenyatta took up the mantle within days to fill his father's role as lead vocalist for Culture by performing at the remaining scheduled concerts on that same European tour. His transition from behind-the-scenes crew member to frontman was said to be both emotional and symbolic, as fans around the world reportedly saw a continuation of Joseph Hill's message and spirit through his son Kenyatta. Sources say that Kenyatta is known to have recorded multiple albums, including Pass the Torch, which is a tribute to his father, and continues to tour and perform under the Culture name. It's also recorded that he has often spoken in interviews about the lessons he learned from his father Joseph while he was still alive. These lessons were not just in music, but in discipline, values, and spiritual grounding. Just like his father, Kenyatta has kept his family life away from public scrutiny. What remains clear to this day is that Joseph Hill's most extraordinary legacy lives on not just through his music, but through the values he passed down to his children. His son, Kenyatta, has become committed to carrying the Culture torch and has also ensured that the voice of his father continues to echo across generations, even after his death. But Joseph Hill's influence didn't stop at his family. Beyond the stage and studio, he gave back in ways that spoke of his mission, and he offered more than music to the communities that embraced him. Let's see more on that. Joseph Hill was not known for formal philanthropic foundations or large-scale charitable campaigns. Still, his impact on communities both in Jamaica and abroad was well-rooted in his music, message, and personal outreach. Through his lyrics, public appearances, and grassroots engagement, Hill used his platform to educate, uplift, and inspire. His songs often address topics of social injustice, African unity, poverty, oppression, and spiritual awakening, and these topics resonated with oppressed and marginalized groups across the globe. Those close to him have noted that for Hill, music itself was a form of service because he believed that the responsibility of an artist was not only to entertain, but to enlighten. Tracks like How Can I Leave Ya, International Herb, and Stop Fussing and Fighting were reportedly more than just melodies. Throughout his touring years, Hill made a strong impression in African countries, particularly Ethiopia, Gambia, and Zimbabwe, where he was received with deep respect. He frequently spoke of the importance of reconnecting with African heritage and was seen as a cultural bridge between the diaspora and the continent. In interviews and live shows, he often took his time to speak directly to the audience about unity, moral responsibility, and self-awareness. While there is limited documentation of material donations or structured outreach programs, those who knew Joseph Hill have described him as a man who gave generously in his time, wisdom, and support, especially to younger musicians and grassroots movements. His life was guided by the Rastafarian concept of livity, which is a way of living that emphasizes righteous action, community responsibility, and balance with nature. Even after his passing, Hill's music continues to be used in educational and cultural programs around the world. His lyrics have also remained a tool for teaching historical awareness and self-respect, particularly among Black youth exploring their identity and roots. His son Kenyatta Hill has continued this legacy not just through performance, but outreach. Kenyatta has been involved in cultural events, tribute concerts, and awareness campaigns that keep his father's spirit alive in meaningful ways. Joseph Hill may not have worn the title of a philanthropist, but to this day, in the hearts of those he influenced, his life was nothing short of a mission and one that continues through every lyric, every message, and every person touched by his voice. As we draw the curtains on a life that gave so much, what can you say about Joseph's contributions to reggae music? Please do drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and kindly click on the next video on your screen.